Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're heading back, way back to late Cretaceous California. We're looking at a pretty remarkable dinosaur, Augustynolophus marisa.
That's right. And we've got some good info here detailing, its discovery, where it fits in the family tree, and the world it lived in.
Exactly. And our mission really is to figure out what makes this dinosaur significant. What does Augustynolophus tell us about those final days of the dinosaurs, especially out there in Western North America?
Let's dive in. What's really fascinating, I think, about Augustynolophus is just when it lived. We're talking the late Maastrichtian age.
Okay, so the very end.
The very end. I mean, this makes it literally one of the last known non-avian dinosaurs before that big asteroid, the KPG extinction event.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like a snapshot from the final scene almost. And it was playing out right there in what's now California.
And these finds, they aren't brand new discoveries, are there? The sources say the fossils themselves were found quite a while ago.
Oh, absolutely. The main specimen, the holotite skull, that was found way back in 1943.
1943.
Yeah. And another important one even earlier, 1939, both pulled from the Moreno Formation in California. So, yeah, they've been in museum collections for a long time.
That's incredible. So the name then, Augustynolophus marisi. It sounds quite specific. Is there a story there?
There usually is with these names. Augustynolophus,
Yeah.
it combines the Augustan family name. They were big supporters of the LA County Museum.
Ah, okay.
And Paleophus, which means crest. That's a nod to its relative Saurolophus.
The one with the crest.
Exactly. And then Marisi, the species name, that honors paleontologist William Morris.
So a little bit of paleontological history baked right into the name itself.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's neat how that works. Now, you mentioned Saurolophus. Initially, Augustynolophus wasn't considered its own thing, was it? It was classified as a Saurolophus.
That's right. That's a key part of its story. When it was first really described in detail around 2013, they named it Saurolophus marisi.
Okay.
But then paleontologists did a much deeper dive into the skull anatomy, and they found, well, some pretty significant differences.
Differences from what?
From the other Saurolophus species, like S. osborni from North America and S. angustirostris from Asia.
Yeah.
And also different from another related hadrosaur, Prosaurolophus.
Ah, I see.
These weren't just tiny details. There were fundamental differences in the skull structure. For example, the way the nasal passages were formed was unique. It suggests it might have even sounded different from Saurolophus.
Interesting. Like for communication.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Different calls for a different environment, perhaps. Enough differences that by 2014 they said, okay, this needs its own genus, and that's how we got Augustynolophus.
So distinct skull features set it apart. And geographically, it seems pretty limited. All the finds are from California.
Precisely. As far as we know, yes. Every confirmed Augustynolophus fossil comes from California.
Which was part of that ancient landmass, Laramidia.
Correct. Laramidia, that sort of island continent formed when the western interior seaway split North America. And Laramidia is famous for its dinosaurs, though maybe California isn't the first place you think of.
Right. You think more Montana, Wyoming?
Exactly. But Laramidia stretched all the way down, and California had its own unique inhabitants like this hadrosaur. Maybe that coastal isolation played a role in it becoming distinct.
Makes sense. Okay, let's picture this animal. How big are we talking? Hadrosaurs could get pretty large.
Oh, yeah. Augustynolophus was definitely substantial. We're looking at estimates of around 8 meters long.
8 meters, so about 26 feet. That's a decent size.
Definitely. And weighing maybe around 3 metric tons. That's roughly 3.3 short tons. A big plant eater sharing the coast.
Hard to imagine that roaming around modern California.
Is that?
And being a hadrosaur, it was a plant eater, obviously, but they had that special chewing ability, didn't they?
That's right, herbivorous, definitely.
Yeah.
And hadrosaurs were really special because they were some of the few dinosaurs that truly chewed their food.
How did that work?
They had these incredible dental batteries. Basically, hundreds of teeth packed together, constantly replacing, forming these broad grinding surfaces. It let them break down really tough plant material efficiently.
A very sophisticated setup for a dinosaur.
Absolutely. A key to their success, probably.
Okay, so we have this big chewing hadrosaur in California, but the sources mention that overall, dinosaur fossils are rarer there compared to places like Hell Creek. Why is that?
Well, it likely comes down to preservation conditions. The Moreno Formation, where Augustynolophus was found, is actually really well known for fossils, just mostly marine fossils.
Ah, okay. So lots of sea creatures.
Tons. But the specific conditions needed to bury and fossilize a large land animal like a dinosaur, might just not have been as common right there on the coast compared to the big river systems and floodplains further inland that form places like Hell Creek.
So fewer dinosaurs, but the ones we find give us a unique window, and the Merino Formation tells us who its neighbors were.
It sure does, and it's quite the list. Augustynolophus was living alongside non-marine turtles, things like Basilames and Osteopygus.
Okay.
But the real stars were in the water. You had Mosel's huge marine lizards like Prognathodon, Halosaurus, Plesiotylosaurus, Plotosaurus.
Well, a whole collection of them.
Absolutely. And plesiosaurs, too. Those long-necked marine reptiles like Frentosaurus, Marenosaurus, Afrosaurus, Hydrotherosaurus.
Incredible.
Plus giant fish like Bonorictus and the predatory Saurodon. It was this amazing interface between land and a very rich, dangerous sea.
So Augustynolophus is literally walking along the beach, and out in the water are these giant marine predators.
Pretty much. A very different picture than the typical inland dinosaur environment we often imagine.
It really is. And the sources mentioned a few others from the wider region, too. An ankylosaur.
Yeah, providing a bit more context for coastal Laramidia, though from a slightly earlier time, the Campanian stage, there's an armored dinosaur, an ankylosaur called Alotopeltocumsi, known from California.
Former dinosaurs on the coast, too.
And even evidence of seabirds like Ichthyornis. So you have life on land, in the sea, and in the air.
It makes you think about how different these coastal ecosystems might have been compared to inland Laramidia, or even compared to Appalachia on the other side of the seaway. Yeah, exactly. Both Laramidia's coast and Appalachia are generally less well sampled than the famous inland sites. So, were there unique pressures? Different dinosaurs adapting to coastal life? We just don't have the full picture.
And there are other fragments found along the Pacific coast.
Yes, bits and pieces, indeterminate hadrosaurs, other ornithopods from California, Oregon, Washington. There's even evidence of a tyrannosaur from Sucia Island up in Washington.
A tyrannosaur.
Yeah, just fragments, but enough to tell us they were there. It all hints that there's probably a lot more to discover about the dinosaurs of the ancient Pacific coast.
It really feels like a frontier for discovery still. So let's circle back to Augustynolophus. What's its main significance? Why is it such an important piece of the puzzle?
Well, a big part is its timing, like we said. It's one of the last ones standing. A late surviving hadrosaur in western North America, living right up until the end. It represents a final chapter for that group in that region.
The final chapter.
And its uniqueness, its distinct skull, shows that evolution was still producing new forms even in those twilight years. And it's achieved some modern-day recognition, too, hasn't it?
It has. In 2017, Augustynolophus morrissey was officially named the State Dinosaur of California.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it has that cultural significance now, too, highlighting California's own unique prehistoric heritage.
Okay, so wrapping up our deep dive today. Augustynolophus was this unique, large hadrosaur from the very end of the Cretaceous in California. Distinct skull, different from its relatives.
Right. Living in this fascinating coastal world, side by side with giant marine reptiles and fish.
And representing one of the very last non-avian dinosaurs known from western North America before the big extinction.
Exactly. A reminder that amazing dinosaur stories can come from places you might not immediately expect.
Absolutely. Which really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Thinking about Augustynolophus on that ancient Laramidian coast, what other stories are still buried out there? In those less explored coastal fossil beds? How could new finds change our picture of the dinosaur world's final moments?
That's the exciting question, isn't it? There could be old chapters we haven't read yet.
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah.